According to the report from the Global Times correspondent stationed in Egypt, Israeli military spokesperson Daniel Hagari stated on November 5 local time that the Israeli forces were undertaking significant strikes against the Palestinian Islamic Resistance Movement, Hamas. Israel has completely surrounded Gaza City, splitting the Gaza Strip into two. In this video, we'll focus on the current situation in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, particularly in Gaza City, discussing the following aspects: bloody street battles, indiscriminate clearance after the countdown ends, Israel's next plans. Israel's official stance has consistently been to strike what they forcibly define as the terrorist organization Hamas. On the surface, the division of the Gaza region appears as preparation for a cleanup operation against Hamas. However, the real challenge at present lies in the brutal street battles. Hamas differs from other armed groups. It's essentially a grassroots resistance organization formed by Palestinian civilians in Gaza. Israel finds it challenging to differentiate between civilians and armed Hamas members. No one can guarantee that a passing Palestinian on the street won't suddenly produce a grenade or launch a rocket from a residential building. Faced with Hamas fighters blending in among civilians, the Israeli military is cautious and inhibited. The so-called Hamas is, in reality, a Palestinian militia within the Gaza region, making it impossible to distinguish them from ordinary Gaza civilians. Moreover, Hamas has operated in Gaza for years, constructing extensive underground networks. Given the densely populated areas and high building density in Gaza, it's an ideal setting for street battles. This is different from the Israeli airstrikes from planes flying recklessly in the sky. It's a genuinely brutal battlefield that requires fighting inch by inch for territory. For instance, in the early stages of the Russia-Ukraine conflict this year, fierce street battles broke out when both sides contested the Bakhmut region. Soldiers' average survival time did not exceed 4 hours, resulting in over 150,000 fatalities in several months, indicating the cruelty of street battles. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu even claimed they would take unlimited and comprehensive security responsibility for the Gaza Strip, indicating considerations for a complete occupation of Gaza. It seems they are not concerned at all about the impending street battles. Israel has now surrounded and divided Gaza City, preparing to enter the city to eliminate Hamas. Why is the Israeli government so calm and composed in the face of the upcoming brutal street battles? The reason is that Israel had always intended to engage in street battles and didn't plan to distinguish between civilians and Hamas. From the previous indiscriminate bombings by the Israeli military, it's evident that Israel's sole purpose is to create panic among the entire Palestinian population in Gaza through indiscriminate bombings and massive massacres, ultimately expelling the over 2.3 million Palestinians from the Gaza Strip. According to the latest survey data from the United Nations Refugee Agency, due to the impact of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, over 1 million Palestinian refugees have fled the Gaza Strip. The European Union has issued a warning, anticipating an influx of 420,000 Gaza refugees into Europe, with numbers expected to rise continuously. EU President Michel has demanded that all EU countries must immediately take measures to deal with the imminent refugee influx. What does this mean? Nearly half of the population has already been forced to leave Gaza, and Israel's initial objective has been achieved. To further expel residents from Gaza City, Israel has cut off water and electricity supplies, closed humanitarian corridors, and prohibited the provision of medical supplies, water, electricity, and fuel to Gaza. On October 13 local time, the Israeli military airdropped leaflets over Gaza, warning residents to flee to the south, which refers to Egypt. Currently, exiting Gaza is allowed, but entering is not permitted. From the methods employed by the Israeli military, it's evident that Israel intends to drive the people of Gaza away. Those who stay behind are seen by Israel as Hamas resistance. Israel plans to conduct indiscriminate strikes and a massacre. Ironically, according to the latest news, the leading units of the Israeli military entering Gaza are not tanks or armored vehicles but bulldozers. Unlike the tank battles and bayonets seen in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, Israel hasn't used traditional war tactics in Gaza. This so-called Israel-Palestine conflict resembles more of an eviction operation, and the main force behind the evictions is the D9 or armored bulldozer manufactured by the American company Caterpillar. The D9 or armored bulldozer, resembling a large bear, is nicknamed the teddy bear and is one of the world's heaviest and most heavily protected armored bulldozers. It measures approximately 8 meters in length, 4 meters in height, 4.5 meters in width, and weighs 62 tons, heavier than most main battle tanks. The D9R is equipped with an additional 15 tons of armor and a mesh skirt protection, effectively defending against rocket launchers, landmines, and bomb attacks. Additionally, the bulldozer is fitted with machine guns and grenade launchers, serving both offensive and defensive purposes. The D9 or armored bulldozer is powered by a Caterpillar 3408C engine with a net power of 405 horsepower. Combined with its tracked chassis and bulletproof front blade, it can clear all obstacles in its path. Structures like residential homes in Gaza pose no significant barriers. Larger residential buildings have mostly been destroyed in Israel's previous indiscriminate airstrikes, and the sporadic remaining structures are cleared by Israel's Merkava tanks equipped with 120mm smoothbore cannons. After such operations, Gaza becomes a vast expanse of flattened land, leaving no place for Hamas to hide. Those Palestinian residents of Gaza who refuse to leave their homes are also dealt with by Israel. Their houses, along with them, are bulldozed and then buried. Israel then rebuilds Gaza on the bones of the Palestinian people, but the residents have been replaced with Jewish people. Israel's next plan. According to a report from the U.S. cable news network, CNN, following Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's declaration to indefinitely assume comprehensive security responsibility for the Gaza Strip, on November 7 local time, the United States promptly issued a warning, stating that Israel's reoccupation of Gaza is unfavorable, not just to Israel but also to the Israeli people. In response, Israel's permanent representative to the United Nations, Gilad Erdan, claimed that Israel has no intention of occupying Gaza but will employ all necessary means to eliminate Hamas. Even on the 10th, Israeli Defense Minister Gantz expressed the ultimate goal of Israel's military operation in Gaza, aiming to establish a completely new security environment in Gaza, ending Israel's administration of the region and restoring normal and safe living conditions. The statements from the U.S. and Israel's governments demonstrate complete contradictions and a lack of sincerity. While the U.S. warns Israel against occupying Gaza, Israel has fast-forwarded to ending its administration of the area, implying that Israel will ultimately occupy Gaza and then withdraw. Not only are the statements contradictory, but Israel's logic is self-contradictory as well. Israel's statements fail to mention whether future residents of Gaza will be Palestinians or Israelis, and there's no mention of the timeframe for ending the administration. Moreover, it's impractical to expect Israel to swallow such a significant peace and then reverse its actions. Since the Third Middle East War in 1967, Israel has still occupied the Golan Heights in western Syria. More than half a century has passed without any signs of returning the territory. Israel has established several Jewish settlements and synagogues in the Golan Heights. In June 2020, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu announced the construction of a Jewish settlement named after U.S. President Trump in the occupied Golan Heights, binding it to the U.S. Israel's current ground military operation in Gaza is no longer solely aimed at eliminating Hamas, but at completely flattening the Gaza Strip. The statements from the U.S. and Israel are merely a smokescreen to relieve international pressure. Once Israel successfully occupies Gaza, it will turn it into a deserted wasteland, achieving Israel's so-called goal of establishing a completely new security environment in the area. This so-called security environment specifically refers to allocating Gaza for Jewish residents. In Israel's view, as long as Palestinians inhabit Gaza, there's fertile ground for Hamas. Therefore, the supposed security environment entails clearing Palestinians and allowing Jews to occupy the entire Gaza City. The Palestinian natives expelled from the Gaza Strip by Israel have become refugees unable to return home. At that point, who will care about their well-being? Perhaps, like the innocent civilians who died in the Vietnam War or Afghanistan War, they will eventually be forgotten by history. This is the end of this video. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment. We genuinely appreciate your support.